Welcome back to Rapture Tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and get ready for another story you won't forget. Let's dive back to the story. Charles Ashcroft, the enigmatic tech billionaire of London, had everything the world told him he should want: power, wealth, and influence. Yet, in the stillness of his opulent penthouse overlooking the River Thames, a gnawing emptiness tugged at his conscience. Business meetings, boardroom triumphs, and media accolades had lost their thrill. He realized that, in all his pursuit of success, he had become disconnected from the very humanity his corporations touched. When his longtime business partner, Edward Marlowe, challenged him to live as an ordinary man for a week, Charles initially scoffed. But a flicker of curiosity, and perhaps a desire to feel alive again, pushed him to accept. With a nod from Edward, he relinquished his security, fame, and wealth, donning the guise of Charlie, a man dressed in worn clothes and carrying only a few coins. For the first time in decades, he would walk the streets of London unseen, unrecognized, and vulnerable. The first few days of this experiment were brutal. The biting cold of rainy streets, the gnawing hunger for meager meals, and the dismissive glances of passers-by were more punishing than Charles had anticipated. He experienced the sting of being invisible, of doors closing before him, and opportunities evaporating in his hands. Simple pleasures, like the warmth of a cafe or a kind word, had become treasures. Exhausted one evening, with his stomach growling and his pride battered, Charlie wandered into a small local eatery named Mrs. Ellery's Kitchen. The restaurant had an unassuming charm, with checkered tablecloths, the scent of simmering stews, and a quiet hum of ordinary life. As he shuffled to a corner, hoping for a cheap meal, other patrons cast derisive glances, whispering about his disheveled appearance. It was here that he first noticed Eleanor Bennet, a young waitress with striking features and a steady, kind gaze, who approached him without a trace of judgment. Eleanor's demeanor was unlike anything Charlie had encountered in years. While other servers scoffed at the sight of him, she treated him with courtesy, patiently taking his order, and even offering a free cup of tea when she noticed his weary hands tremble. As he watched her move between tables, balancing trays and soothing grumpy customers, he sensed a quiet strength behind her gentle smile. Eleanor was juggling more than just her job. Her eyes betrayed a mix of fatigue and fierce determination, and Charlie, in his hidden observation, felt a flicker of admiration. Over the next few days, he returned to Mrs. Ellery's Kitchen under guise of Charlie, seeking the rare warmth that Eleanor offered. With every interaction, he learned more about her struggles. She was paying for her mother's kidney dialysis while also funding her university tuition, yet she carried herself with dignity and an unbroken spirit. Witnessing Eleanor's courage and kindness began to shake something deep within Charlie. He realized that the harsh world he had insulated himself from was not faceless. It bore names, stories, and struggles as vivid and intricate as his own. While he had wielded power without thought for its repercussions, Eleanor's world demanded resilience and empathy. He saw the community around Mrs. Ellery's Kitchen rally for one another, sharing what little they had, standing up for neighbors, and valuing humanity over profit. The stark contrast between his corporate life and the lives of ordinary Londoners was jarring. By the end of the week, Charlie's eyes had been opened, not just to poverty, but to the dignity, strength, and sacrifices of those society often overlooked. The experiment had started as a challenge. Now, it had become a revelation. One afternoon, news spread across the eatery that sent a chill through Charlie's heart. A demolition notice had arrived from Mrs. Ellery's Kitchen. A massive tech corporation planned to raze the entire block, replacing it with a gleaming development. Shockingly, Charlie recognized the signature on the paperwork. It was his own. The realization hit him with a force he had not felt in years. The empire he had built, the decisions he had signed off on without thought, was about to destroy the very community he had come to admire. The injustice of it all, seeing Eleanor's life, the sanctuary of the restaurant, and the livelihoods of so many people threatened, brought Charlie to his knees in despair. He wrestled with guilt, shame, and the urgent need to act, understanding that his past indifference had tangible consequences. Charlie knew that he could no longer remain invisible. Donning his sharpest suit and leaving behind the tattered guise of Charlie, he returned to the site of the impending demolition. The construction crews were already poised to begin, unaware that their orders would soon be countermanded. As he stepped forward, the crowd of local residents and restaurant patrons froze, staring at the man whose face was familiar to the news and business world, but whose sudden presence in their midst was shocking. Charlie revealed his identity, explaining how he had come to understand the human impact of his corporate decisions. The reaction was a mix of awe, disbelief, and cautious hope. With authority and humility intertwined, he canceled the demolition, firing the corporate enforcer who had aggressively pursued the destruction, and pledged to protect the community that had taught him a lesson money never could. His commitment did not end there. Charlie cleared all debts of Mrs. Ellery's kitchen, transferred the property title to the restaurant's owner, and established a foundation dedicated to safeguarding small businesses from predatory corporate expansion. He personally ensured Eleanor's mother received full medical care for her dialysis, covering every cost, and paid for Eleanor's university tuition in full. More importantly, he involved Eleanor in his new initiative, valuing her insights and connection to the community, and giving her a voice in decisions that affected ordinary citizens. In every choice he made, Charlie now considered the human consequences, learning that true leadership was not about control, but about empathy, understanding, and action. Over the following months, Charlie's transformation became evident to everyone who knew him. He still maintained his position as a leading tech entrepreneur, yet his approach to business had fundamentally changed. Meetings that once centered solely on profits now incorporated discussions on social responsibility, community impact, and ethical governance. The partnership with Edward Marlowe, once defined by ambition and power, was now tempered with reflection and purpose. Eleanor, now the director of community initiatives, became a trusted partner, bridging the gap between wealth and everyday life, ensuring the lessons Charlie had learned were never forgotten. Together, they created a blueprint for corporations to exist not as detached entities, but as forces that could uplift rather than oppress. Charlie's story quickly became a cautionary tale and an inspiration. The media coverage, though initially skeptical, highlighted not just the billionaire's philanthropy, but the profound personal journey that prompted it. Eleanor's story, intertwined with Charlie's transformation, resonated with millions. A young woman, burdened yet undeterred, had taught one of the richest men in Britain the value of human connection. Community leaders praised the initiative, small business owners felt protected, and ordinary Londoners saw that compassion could exist even within the corridors of immense power. Charlie's lessons rippled far beyond the borders of the city, serving as a reminder that the measure of a person's wealth was not in pounds or property, but in empathy, character, and action. As time went on, Charlie often reflected on the week he lived as Charlie the ordinary man. What had begun as a challenge orchestrated by a perceptive friend had become a transformative odyssey. He understood now that the trappings of wealth could blind even the sharpest mind to suffering, and that real insight came from listening, observing, and engaging with the world beyond boardrooms and business deals. Eleanor remained a constant presence in his life, not just as an employee, but as a moral compass and a friend who reminded him daily of the dignity in every human soul. The lessons learned in those humble streets had reshaped his identity entirely. The relationship between Charlie and Eleanor deepened into a profound partnership. Their mutual respect formed the foundation of both personal and professional collaboration. They traveled across London, visiting neighborhoods affected by corporate expansion, listening to grievances, and offering solutions that preserve community integrity. Charlie often marveled at Eleanor's unflinching strength, how she balanced compassion with practicality, and how her courage had inspired him to face the consequences of his own power. In a way, he realized that the heart he had thought lost ambition had been awakened by someone who had nothing but still gave everything. The narrative of Charlie's transformation soon spread beyond London, capturing the attention of global leaders and philanthropists. Conferences and forums invited him to speak about ethical business, social responsibility, and the necessity of empathy in leadership. Yet, despite fame and accolades, Charlie never forgot the small restaurant where it all began. Mrs. Ellery's kitchen became more than a place of meals. It became a symbol of resilience, compassion, and the spark that ignited change. Eleanor continued her work there, mentoring young women and men, ensuring the spirit of the place endured. Charlie's journey showed that true wealth was measured not by assets, but by lives touched, hearts changed, and communities preserved. In quiet moments, Charlie would sit by the Thames, reflecting on the narrow line between ignorance and understanding. He remembered the hunger, humiliation, and isolation he endured as Charlie, and how profoundly it shaped his decisions thereafter. Each encounter with Eleanor, each smile from a community member, reminded him of the simple, enduring power of kindness. He understood now that success without conscience was hollow, and that wealth and influence carried with them a sacred responsibility to uplift, protect, and honor humanity. The culmination of Charlie's journey was not a single grand gesture, but a lifetime of choices shaped by empathy. He cultivated policies in his corporation that prioritized ethical engagement, implemented charitable programs, and created mentorship opportunities for young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds. Eleanor's guidance ensured that these initiatives remained grounded, practical, and impactful. Together, they proved that transformation was possible, not only for an individual, but for entire systems that had long operated without conscience. Charlie's life became a testament to the power of reflection, action, and the influence of human kindness. Years later, Charlie often invited young business leaders and students to Mrs. Ellery's kitchen, sharing with them the story of the billionaire who once lived as a nobody. He emphasized the importance of humility, compassion, and awareness, stressing that every decision, no matter how small, reverberated through lives that might otherwise be invisible. Eleanor, now a respected leader in her own right, continued to inspire countless others, ensuring that the lessons Charlie learned were shared far and wide. Their story became an enduring legend, illustrating that even those with immense power could learn, change, and act for the greater good. Ultimately, Charlie Ashcroft's journey was a profound exploration of identity, morality, and the essence of wealth. He had begun as a man blind to the consequences of his power, and through the simple act of kindness from a young waitress, he discovered a new path, a path defined not by financial metrics or corporate conquests, but by empathy, responsibility, and human connection. The world saw a billionaire transformed, but the true miracle lay in a man who remembered what it meant to be human. That's all for today. Like, subscribe, and see you in the next episode. Stay tuned.